Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. So, this is more about Umar's advice to the candidates who's going to lead the Muslim Ummah after him. He's giving advice, important advice to the Khalifas who will lead after him. This was a speech of his, and here's the last part of it, which I think you'll find quite thought-provoking because I know I did. So he says, if you are just in this world and practice abstinence from what you could possess, you shall earn faith and acceptance. So here, I noticed that he was really about resisting temptation and lust, right? Because when he says could possess, you can mean that as in material or of women, right? Because in another book I was reading, it said that Omar, may Allah be pleased with him, was walking and he heard a woman say something like her husband was a soldier. He was gone for 3 months and she was reciting some poetry about, she's getting kind of a little hot and bothered, right? But she's being chased. And he went to her door and he said, open the door. And she said, go away if you fear Allah, or I'm going to tell the commander of the faithful. And he's like, open the door. I am the commander of the faithful. And eventually she opened the door. She didn't really believe him. But then, because of that incident, I'm summarizing here, he went to his daughter Hafsa and said, how long can a man and a woman be separated? And his daughter said, like 3 to 4 months. And then he went and said that the soldiers should not be absent from their wives on a mission for longer than that. I'm summarizing. I was reading that in this book about fiqh al-haya. So I found that to be cool. And Omar, may Allah be pleased with him, would walk around with his discipline stick. So he really was focusing on making sure there wasn't debauchery, right? That's what seems clear to me. He's known for being more strict. So when he says here to be just, right? Don't transgress. Practice abstinence and to earn acceptance and faith through resisting what you could easily reach out and grab, right? So he doesn't have that kind of Loki, coyote archetype. He don't like that. Now Loki's this stupid pagan myth of a trickster who's doing something bad. And coyotes in Native American mythology are they're more tricky because they steal your chickens and stuff. So if somebody's acting like a coyote, they're gonna sneak in, hop the fence, and go with your wife. So he's not for that kind of energy in a man, quite clearly. And he wants women to be good, obviously. And then he says here further, if you are overcome by desire, you shall earn the wrath of Allah. So here you get it, if you want to earn Allah's pleasure, you don't submit to desire. This is something I love, because Umar is telling all of us, not just the Khalifa who's going to inherit after him, but all of us, especially now in 2022, and with the metaverse on the way, right? We really got to make sure we don't allow ourselves to be overcome by desire. And this is very important for the young men, especially when there's all types of debauchery and OnlyFans and Tinder and all these trash apps and stuff. It's don't allow yourself to earn the wrath of Allah. Instead, earn faith and acceptance by resisting. I like that. It's very powerful. Here again, it says, I order you to refrain from and prevent everyone else from oppressing the non-Muslim citizens. So here it's about the jizya, right? Just do what you have to do, but don't overly oppress them. And I like that because in the Treaty of Umar, the dhimmis had a specific role and rank. And here you see they're hey, don't transgress. They're not your whipping donkeys, right? He continues, I hereby give you these orders and offer you special advice. So take it and seek Allah's pleasure and hereafter with it. So here he's like, listen to it, take it, like, just follow it, and you can earn the hereafter with it, because we know he got to see the birth of Islam, and he got to learn it in a very deep way. So he's doing his duty by transmitting the knowledge onto us, and he's like, take it, don't reject it, do what you gotta do. What I have chosen to advise you with is the very advice I have been giving to myself and my son. So here you get at, he's practicing what he's preaching, right? He's not given separate, secret, more potent advice for his own self and family, but the same, extending that endearment, love, and guidance to the Muslim community. So you see the sense of duty, honor, caring coming in here, right? You don't see that today. The advice Biden would give to the American people is much different than he gives to his crackhead son, right? It's very different, very different. You can totally see how the Khalifa energy that Omar is showing us, someone who would give the same advice to all the people he would give his son. Good example of that would be AMLO of Mexico, Obrador. He gives a lot of health advice now to don't eat junk food and stuff to the people. He's trying to combat the cartels. He's not Khalifa, but he is a leader who speaks of perfecting his population's health. And you can kind of see he's the same as he would be publicly as privately, from all accounts, right? Here, though, you just see how corrupt the world is now. But if we ever had a Khalifa in the future, hopefully they would take this advice and act upon it. He continues, if you act according to this admonition and comply with my orders, you shall surely gain a great deal of good. As we can see, right? Practice abstinence. Earn faith and acceptance through resisting what you could possess. Refrain from oppressing people, right? That's definitely a great deal of good. Because if you oppress people too much, they're going to cause rebellions, can set things on fire, disturb the economy, right? Revolts don't really do a lot when you want peace and economics. And it says here, however, if you do not accept it, show no concern, and do not leave the impermissible for what may earn you Allah's acceptance, then you shall prove faulty and corrupt in your thinking. So here he's saying, like, hey, you're the Khalifa, so you need to not be corrupt in your thinking. You need to prove worthy, up to the task. Earn Allah's pleasure, don't earn his wrath. And it says here further, whims tend to be unclear. Now this is a cool point. Whims, they can be vague. You can think, I'm just going to go for this, and you're not really sure, you haven't really thought it out. And Shaitan has these illusions. And illusions are really vague sometimes, even though they can feel real. But if you get at them, and you really focus in on it, you'll see what's real and what's not, inshallah. Right? So I like how he put that. He continues, and Satan, the main cause of sin, is inviting to every single way of destroying yourself. Now what I liked about this was this very potent example. Every single way of destroying yourself. It's not just one way. And for me, I've been thinking a lot about the metaverse. It's like, you have Shaitan in your community. Streetwalkers, gangs. You have the more fancy type, the kind of Wall Street. You have corrupt leaders. You have bribery. You have all kinds of temptations, right? But now you see a new type of inviting, which is in the digital realm, where pornography will go insane, and so much absurdity will happen in a world that can be coded, right? It's really scary when you think about it, because if in the real world that we're in right now, the dunya, if that has temptation, adding another layer of metaverse on top is pretty intense. So I really like how he put that, that every single way of destroying yourself, Shaitan will invite you to it. So if you think, how many categories is that? It's quite a lot. He continues, he misguided generations before you and drove them to hell, which is a terrible place to be led to. So notice this, misguided generations before you and drove them to hell. So here you see the aspect of time, because sometimes we live right in the now, right? And we think, we got it all figured out. But here he's like pointing out for us there were other generations beyond you, right? It doesn't stop or begin at you, right? But that were led astray. And some of them were very wise. They faced different kinds of sin, right? But still similar types of sin. And if they got tricked, so could you. That's what I got from that. He continues, there is a lousy price to be paid after being loyal to an enemy of Allah and a caller to disobedience. So here again you see that we know Iblis is the enemy of Allah and Iblis calls to disobedience, but he mentions here lousy price. So the greatest reward is in the Akhirah. If you don't get in, you're going to go to hell, which is a very horrible abode. So if you want a better reward, strive for Jannah. If you want something a lousy price, then you'd be a fool and go with Shaitan. So this sort of metaphoric yet literal, spiritual example that has a monetary hint to it that really makes you think about exchange rates, right? He continues, be led by the truth, engage yourself in it, and always admonish yourself. So admonishing yourself, correcting behavior, self-reflection, weighing, but being led by truth and engaging yourself in it. So here it's like, what is Shaitan? He's the father of lies, illusion, deception, right? Leading you to destroy yourself. But here you see that he wants you to go to the truth, seek the truth, and admonish yourself by the truth. He continues, by Allah, I will implore you to be merciful towards the Muslim community. So here he wants you to be merciful towards the Ummah. If you're a Khalifa, you need to have aspects of mercy. This is very interesting. Today we're seeing less mercy when it comes to certain medical procedures, horrific forms of segregation and oppression, which is not merciful, especially when parents are not allowed to see their children in the hospital because they're on jab. That's not merciful. The little child wants to see their parent and they're being barred from it. People being drugged to camps, put in a camp against their will. They don't want to be there, and away from their children, as their children cry out for their parents while they're in a camp instead of at home. This is oppression. But here again, mercy coming in. A ruler must have an element of mercy, not cruelty all the time. He says here, honor the elders. Here, it's been noted for many that the Arab world, Islamic culture outside of America, has a deep respect for elders. That used to exist amongst the American tribes, but they're pretty much really dwindled down. But the new culture has zero respect for elders, especially in America. They make up nicknames. We put them in old folks' home. The wise people now are hard to find. And now we know that some people are old, but they have no wisdom. And there's people who have no mercy in the care homes for the elderly. They're seen as a pest. And certain huge political figures argue that at a certain age you should be put in a pod. I'm not going to say the word because it might trigger the algorithm, but there's a pod that's been developed and will be released that you can go in, and it will put you out, and that once you get to a certain age you shouldn't sap off the system and you should go into a pod and exit this world, which is not very honorable of an elder. So here I do like how he mentioned honor your elders, because a good Muslim would honor their elders, right? Have mercy on their young ones. So here, have mercy on the babies. Abortion is not a mercy. Post-birth infanticide isn't either. There was a Georgia politician, they probably scraped it off YouTube, but I'm sure you could find it. Georgia politician says that once the baby is born, a mother and the doctor should have a discussion on if they want to keep it. And then there's laws about if a child survives an abortion, are they protected under the Constitution or not? And certain feminist liberal atheists say no, they're not, because the mother did not consent and they survived. So, we have a very tense time about mercy now. So here, what do you see, right? Mercy towards Muslims, towards elders, and the young. And who today attacks the old, disrespects the old, has an anti-human agenda towards babies, who mocks families and tries to suppress families and calls children all kinds of horrific names. We can see who's doing that. But a Khalifa here would have these values, inshallah, and that would be very beneficial, as we can see. He continues, and revere the scholars. Yes, people often romanticize Plato's philosopher kings when we can have revered scholars advise Khalifas, right? Do not harm them or take away their dignity. Do not keep spoils to yourself and anger them. Do not hold back their due allowances and impoverish them. Don't impoverish them. Keep them good, you see? Do not keep them away on long assignments lest they have no children. So here, lest they have no children. Pro-family. Pro-family. Pro-reproduction. Pro-reproduction. And then prevent wealth from circulating amongst the rich. So the miserliness, the hoarding, corruption, nepotism, fat cats, right? You want to make sure that the wealthy are not doing this sort of trickle-down economic system. And do not close your door in front of them, thereby allowing the strong to devour the weak. So the strong criminals harming the weaker populations. That reminds me of like cartels going to small farms and totally harming the farmer's daughter, stuff like that they do. And the corrupt police and government turning a blind eye and getting paid off. It's quite sad. So law and order. You need law and order to prevent the strong from devouring the weak and the elderly and the children. You have to have law and order. So defunding cops prevents, protection for the weak. As long as your cops are good, right? He says here, this is my admonition to you, as Allah is my witness, and may peace be with you. So here he got into state affairs, the methodology of an efficient system of government concerning Islamic rule. Covered all kinds of areas. Mashaallah, I really enjoyed that. Hope you did as well. And may we live up to be that. So he gave us a good example of what is the duty of a Khalifa. And even if our sons don't become that, well, still, they can be that in their homes, community, and elsewhere.